All right, in this section, we're going to be talking about something called a chord. So what is a chord? It's a line segment. With both endpoints on a circle. And like we talked about last chapter, what's a diameter? A diameter is a chord that passes through the center of a circle. Okay. So let's go look at the notation now. Chords. So we could call this, let's go ahead and just draw in some, I'm going to use this. So if I call this chord AB, I could also draw one like this and call it chord CD. And then finally, if you want to draw one more, and I'll call it EF. And then a diameter is the same thing, but it goes straight through the center. So like diameter AB, diameter CD, or diameter EF. We're going to remember that the diameter is twice the length of the radius of the same circle, and that all diameters of a circle have the same length. A circle has an infinite number of diameters, and the diameter defines the size of a circle. Like the bigger the diameter, the bigger the circle. The diameter is the distance across the center of a circle. So the rule is if two chords are the same distance from the center, then they are congruent. If two chords are congruent, then they are the same distance from the center. Notice that's the rule and the converse of the rule. So looking at this image here, we know that if this is 5.91 distance away and this is 5.91 distance away, then those two chords are congruent. So AC and FD are chords on circle with center O, and AC is 5.91 from the center, and FD is 5.91 from the center. So if two chords are the same distance from the center, then they're congruent. So our conclusion is that chord AC is congruent to chord FD. If a radius is perpendicular to a chord, then it bisects the chord. And if a radius bisects a chord, then it is perpendicular. And then here's an example of that. AC is a chord on circle with center O. So OD is a radius. If AC is perpendicular to OD at point B, the measure of AB is equal to 3.2. And what we know is that if a radius is perpendicular to a chord, then it bisects that chord. And so OD bisects AC, and B is the midpoint of AC. So if the measure of BC is 3.2, then we know that the measure of AC is also 3.2. So going back and looking at the image, I know that this is equal to this if those are perpendicular. So name the diameters of this circle. Can you see those lengths right there? And remember that you can say the letters in both directions. So if you were thinking the letters in reverse of the ones I say here, it's totally fine. So for example, right here, we could say one way of saying the diameter would be FZ. Oops. Another diameter you could say is HW, but if you said those in reverse, that's totally fine. Notice the other two are chords, not diameters, because a diameter has to pass through the center of the circle. So over here we have AZ, we have FR, we have XH, and then the other ones are just there to confuse us. There's just 3. Next, if the next part is telling us that we've got a radius of 4.7, then what is the diameter? Remember that the diameter is just double the radius. So we would say that the diameter equals 2 times the radius. The diameter is equal to times 4.7, and therefore our diameter is 9.4. Over here it's 2 times the radius, 2 times 11.3, so 22.6. And this time they gave us the full diameter and they want the radius. So we know that the radius is half the diameter, or half of 26.6, or 13.3. How'd you do? Finally, our little rules about the chord. We know that CB is equal to 2 times CD. And so if you know that CD is 3, we know that that whole length is 6. And on this next one, YZ is equal to 2 times YW, or 2 times 4.5, which is 9. So if they told us this is 4.5, we know we can just double that to get the chord, because when these are perpendicular, these little segments are equal. It's bisecting it, it's going through the midpoint. Finally, if these are the same distance apart, the chords are congruent. So we know that BC is equal to DE, and they told us that DE was 12. Here we know that CD is equal to BE, and we were told that BE is 9. And finally, we were told here that this was a little 13.5, and so they want to know what this is. So this is saying if those two chords are congruent, then their distances are the same. This is the converse. So we just say that that other distance is 13.5. You are only going to do quiz 5.2. You did not need to do quiz 5.1 on Apex. All right.